Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.
Aide, welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry. Today it's my pleasure to have in studio one of the teacher aides from Cagman High School, Mr. Jason Teregeyo. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I asked you to be with us today because last month was National Braille Month, which kind of made me think about the people in our community who have a visual impairment. And of course, you are one of those people. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born and raised here, and I've been blind for 25 years. I lost my sight back in 1989 due to a gunshot wound. And I've been blind for 25 years, and I went to Hawaii for training for the blind and how to live independently as a blind person.
How do you feel your life has changed being visually impaired, comparing it to how it was when you had vision? Do you feel there is a dramatic change?
Yes, I do. It has limited me to different sports that I like to play. Like when I was sighted, I like to play basketball or go fishing, but now I cannot do that. I'm limited with what I can do. When I first lost my sight, I used to go with my friends and fish using rod and reel, but playing basket is hard because I cannot see the rim and so forth. But I came to enjoy other sports like swimming and playing bowling. I used to be in a bowling league for the blind when I was in Hawaii. And when I moved to New York, I also joined the blind league there. And we compete with other states that have blind teams.
So are you actually any good at bowling, or are you mediocre? Where are you in the competition? Are you one of the better players?
No, I'm average. My average is 80.
Oh, that might beat mine, actually. I'm not even sure whether I break 100. Most of the time, I don't think I break 100. So we might be in the same range. Well, one of the things I was hoping you would share with us today is first of all, one of the first questions I asked you was, when we were chatting before the show, is what is the proper way to address somebody who is blind, or what is the proper terminology to refer to somebody when they have blindness?
Well, when you refer to a person who is visually impaired, you just don't use their disability, but acknowledge them by their name. And if you approach a person, you always introduce yourself before you try to help them, because some people, they want to help and they just walk up to the person and hold them by the hand if they're crossing the road, and that's not the proper way. First, you introduce yourself and offer help or how you can help the person.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of times when we encounter a person who is visually impaired, we do want to help them, but we don't know what is the proper way to do so, or sometimes we wonder whether they actually want assistance. So I think offering, like you said, first of all, offering the person, it gives them the authority then to decide whether or not they want your help. What are some of the other best practices we can use as a community when dealing with a person who is visually impaired or who has a visual impairment?
Well, the other thing, when you offer a person who is visually impaired help, and if you were to guide them across the street, you always make sure they hold on to your elbow. That's the proper sighted guide, and you always have a distance in front of them, like a foot ahead of them, and then you walk. So
And
that way it gives them space to uh, walk and not trip on you.
hmm okay, that makes sense. So have them hold your elbow. Um, do people who, well, I mean, I'm sure you can't speak for all people who have a visual impairment, but are you ever offended when people ask to offer you help for something that you're fully capable of doing on your own?
No, I actually uh, appreciate when they offer help because uh, sometimes they don't know that if I need help at the moment or uh, I'm doing it the safest way. So I like it when they offer help, and then I'm the best judgment of it if I'm gonna accept the help or not.
hmm Well, give us a little insight into your life. What are some of the normal everyday things that you do on your own?
Well, like I said, I work at Kangman High School, so that's my daily routine. I go to work and I cook and
Are you a
help out
good
in
cook? Because
mm,
this is important.
not really. I'll say I'm an
Okay.
average cook, but
Okay,
yeah,
you're an average cook. That's
yeah,
still good.
yeah.
All right. You cook, you work.
And I help out in the family, like you know, to clean outside the house and do errands. I go with my girlfriend to do errands, and sometimes I help like clean a yard cleaning, especially like at the farm or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When you're going around town on a daily basis, what are some of the challenges you encounter that could actually be eliminated if businesses in the community were a little more sensitive? In other words, what are some suggestions you have? Let's start with businesses. For businesses to become more customer friendly for people who have a visual impairment.
Well, to have their like let's say restaurant for example, I would appreciate if they have their menu on Braille, or other businesses like hotels. They have their prices in Braille, or their elevators Braille.
Yeah, that's one thing that a lot of people may not be aware of is that when you step into an elevator, a lot of times the numbers will also be printed in Braille, so that people who are visually impaired can avail of that. Do you find many elevators like that here in the Northern Marianas or in Saipan?
Some elevators that I've been into, yes, they do have Braille. I haven't been around a lot in different businesses that have elevators, so I'm not really sure if all elevators have Braille or not. But I've been to banks, like their ATM is in Braille, so I get to use the ATM machine and know what I'm doing.
In your recollection, which restaurants here in Saipan currently offer menus in Braille?
McDonald's and Jay's restaurant.
I have to ask, do you go out to eat a lot or do you mostly just go to McDonald's and Jay's?
I don't eat out much because like I live all the way in Cagman, so I try to minimize coming into town unless it's very important or to visit family.
Would you have any idea how many people there are in Saipan who have a visual impairment who might be able to, avail of these services more if they were provided in Braille?
I only know of 5 people that are visually impaired that they go around and they're Braille readers.
Okay, so obviously you do need to be able to read Braille to avail of these services. Is there anything else? You spend some time living off island, you mentioned. What are some of the things they do in other jurisdictions that would be helpful? here in Saipan?
Well, when I was in Hawaii, like there's different clubs, like the Sierra Club and Canoe Club. So they take people with vision impairment canoeing or hiking and do a lot of outdoor activities. And I hope that, you know, different clubs here will be more involved in that and, you know, help out the disabled community, not necessarily just blind people, but people that have special need and limited to do things or just don't know how to get out and
get involved. Maybe
yeah,
they don't know what opportunities are out there.
Yes.
If a group or organization is interested in dealing or providing these types of activities or inviting people with special needs to come and participate, what's a good contact for them? Who should they be getting this information out to?
Well, there's different agencies that provide services to people with disability, like Office of Vocational Rehab, Centers for Living Independently, and DD Council.
Okay, so those are two good first stops if there's anybody, any organization that would like to invite people with who are visually impaired or who have other special needs to participate, DD Council.
Yes.
Or the Center for Independent Living.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you can recall from living off island that might help our community here as far as maybe how things are built or anything like that? Anything else besides the club activity and stuff like that?
Not that I can think of right now, but I just want to inform the public that, or the community, that to have respect on the Braille labels in the elevators or wherever you see Braille labels, not to mess with them, because if the Braille is smashed, it makes it harder for the person who is visually impaired to read it.
Very good. Well, when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about Braille and about your work at Cagman High as a teacher aide. Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay, great. We're speaking today with Jason Teregeyo, a person who is visually impaired and also a teacher aide at Cagman High School. We'll be back with more after this break.
Hafa Day, this is Eulalia Villagomez of the Northern Marianas Humanities Council. Did you know that you can donate up to $5,000 to the Humanities Council through the CNMI Education Tax Credit Program? Donations from individuals and corporations qualify and can be used to offset your local wage and salary tax, BGRT, and earnings tax. Call our office at 235-4785 to see how you can support humanities programs in our community and obtain a tax credit for your donation. Thank you, and Sizus Masi.
Welcome back to your Humanities Half Hour. Our guest today is Jason Teregeyo, a person who is visually impaired living here in Saipan, of course, originally from Saipan, and also a teacher aide at Cagman High School. Tell us a little bit about your work there at Cagman High and what you're involved in.
Well, I work the special ed department at Cagman High, and I've been there for 10 years. And I work with students with special needs. And when there is a person with vision impairment, they usually pair me up with that person so I can teach Braille and help them with their classwork, like transcribing the material into Braille for them. I was very fortunate when I first started there. I had a great team there. When I first started, there was 2 students with visual impairment, and they were able to read Braille already because 2 of my team members were able to read and write Braille, so they kind of helped them out before I came on board. And there's 2 kinds of Braille. There's grade 1 Braille and grade 2 Braille. Also called contracted and uncontracted. Uncontracted Braille is like just plain A to Z. Contracted Braille is short form words, and there's a lot of those. So that's what I teach, the grade 2 Braille. And I was glad that when I came on, the students were able to read and write grade 1, and I just have to teach them grade 2. I still see the student that I used to work with now and then, and he's still able to read and write Braille. And I also work with him up at CLI to refresh his memory with Braille and making sure that he still have everything intact.
For those that may not know, what is Braille?
Braille is just dots that people who are visually impaired use to read with their fingers. It has 6 dots, and they have different combination of dots to
convey the word, or
to convey the word
letter.
or the letter. And there's also another kind of Braille which I never got to learn. I didn't really think I would need it, but I kind of regret that I didn't learn it. It's for math, and it's called Mimic Braille. And yeah, but this one, the Braille that I know now, is very helpful, for students to read and write or do their work and be able to just move on.
Yeah, where did you learn to read Braille?
I learned it in Hawaii. Well, actually, grade 1 Braille, I learned it here at Marianas High School. There used to be a teacher at the special ed department from the Philippines who knew how to read and write Braille, so she taught me how to read grade 1. And then when I went off to Hawaii, that's where I learned grade 2. And then I also learned different things like mobility training, how to use computer, safe way to cook, and like home management stuff. And then I decided to go to college, and then that's where I got my 2-year degree at Capilani Community College.
And what is your degree in exactly?
Just liberal arts.
Okay. How did you become certified to teach Braille?
Well, because I went through the training, and when I came here and I applied at the public school system, I had to get approval from Ho'opono Center for the Blind that I could teach Braille, and yeah, they gave me a certificate that I did complete the training and I am capable of teaching Braille.
What made you decide to become a teacher's aide?
Well, I like to help out people, and because I've learned a lot when I was in Hawaii and also in Syracuse, New York, I wanted to share what I learned as a visually impaired person to our people who has visual impairment here.
Okay. And how long have you been working there as a teacher aide now?
This year makes it 10 years.
All right. You mentioned the computer and transcribing the students' work. What kind of technology do you use and the students use there that help you?
Well, we have a Braille Perkins Brailler. It's a machine that, you just roll the paper in and then you write in Braille. Or I also have a machine called Braille Note. So when I go to classes, I take notes, and then I used to have a Braille printer that I would just hook the machine up to it and then just print it. But now I just do it manually, like using the Perkins Braille.
How do you find the students respond to having you as their teacher if they do have a visual impairment? Do you feel that helps your relationship with them?
Yes, especially correction. Uh, yes, it does, because they see where I'm at now, and it kind of encourage them to, do well in school, and they have hope that if I can do it, they can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to ask, if you weren't a teacher aide right now, or maybe thinking to the future, is there any other career you think you might be interested to pursue?
Well, when I was in Syracuse, New York, I thought of becoming a blind vendor, and then I went. I applied to get training there, and I came to find out that if I got the license, I couldn't use it elsewhere. My goal was to get that license and work in Hawaii. But they told me if I want to do that, I have to go to Hawaii and get the vending program training there.
Mm-hmm.
So I called Hawaii, and they said the business is on freeze. There's too many vendors, blind vendors out there, and there's no business open. And so I decided to come home and just get away from the snow.
Nothing wrong with that, that's
Yeah.
for sure. How does this program work, blind vendors?
Because it's run by a blind person, and we have certain things we can sell and certain things we cannot sell in our vending program. I believe there's 3 levels of training, and it depends which training you go to. You have to pay the blind vendor,
Mm-hmm.
like the association, to get the license and sell other things that is not allowed in the vending program.
Do you think that kind of program might work here in Saipan? Why or why not?
Actually, it will. I think it will. There was a blind vendor uh, that offered me to come out here and train me. And when he came out here to see where he could have the program, but he said there's a lot of places, but there's not just enough blind people to run the business.
To make it function properly.
Mhm.
Okay, I can understand that. So that's a possible career interest for you other than being a teacher's aide. But I'm sure the students you work with must be very encouraged, as you said, to
Mhm.
have you there and to show them what they can be and that they can live successfully and independently.
Mhm.
Hmm. I wanted to ask, do you feel, we look at visual impairment as a disability, but do you feel in any way that since you have become visually impaired, it has actually given you greater skill or maybe an advantage or a certain ability in other ways that you didn't have before that?
Well, for my own experience, it did, because I didn't like reading, um, and now just to keep myself busy or as an entertainment, I I order books in Braille and read, and
What do you
it
like
kind of
to read?
improve my.
Oh, go
Sorry.
ahead. I'm sorry.
It kind of improve my hearing. I hate to listen to music or things like that, or I don't pay attention to what I hear. But now it's like, how can I block things out?
What kind of books do you like to read, by the way?
I like to read detective stories, or just what?
Well, I'm surprised that you said you order books to read in Braille versus ordering like audiobooks where somebody else reads the story and you just listen to them read the story. Why do you prefer books written in Braille?
Because when I read in Braille, it tends to stay in my head, in my memory, supposed to listening to it. I lose focus, or sometimes it puts me to sleep.
Okay, like a meditation tape or something
Yes.
like that. Okay, that's interesting. Well, Jace, I really want to thank you for taking the time to come and talk with us and open up a little bit about your life and give us the opportunity to understand, where you're coming from as a person who is visually impaired. And I wanted to give you a little bit time here at the end of our show for some final thoughts, or maybe something that you'd like to share that I haven't asked about or I'm not aware of, or something something that would be beneficial to us.
Well, thank you very much for having me on the show, and I would just like to thank my family for accepting who I am, not looking at me, not feeling sorry for me or feeling pity. They have faith in me that I can do whatever I want, and I can be safe being on my own, and I appreciate that. And so as my coworkers, they work with me closely, and they don't question if I can do it or not. They just tell me what to do, and they walk away, and they have trust in me that I can do the job.
Well, thank you again. We really appreciate it. And I would say definitely my experience knowing you, there is no space for pity and seeing the kind of person you are, but I think there is space for admiration.
Yep, yes, sir.
Our guest today has been Jason Teregeyo, sharing about his work as a teacher aide at Kegman High School and his life as a person who is visually impaired. Thank you so much, Jace.
Thank you.
This has been your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry.
This program was supported by a We the People grant awarded to the Northern Marianas Humanities Council from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.